Good to see you. This is part 3 in our review of the Chris Watts interrogation. We're exposing what the criminal is too humiliated to admit to, giving a voice to the victims, and some credit to the unsung heroes. So, where we left off, Chris was finishing up his written statement, and we established the Chris Watts rule, which states that anytime he replies in the negative, the opposite is true. And he set the tone for that at the end of his written statement when he said, "I have no idea where they are." So it turns out he does know where they are. And this rule will hold true all through the rest of the interrogation, with at least one, maybe two big exceptions that we will get to. So we're taking a different direction in this thing now, because up until now it's just been Chris's written statement, where he's saying mostly what he has thought of ahead of time with the few audibles that we covered. But now Graham is going to start asking follow-up questions to fill in some of those plot holes, which Chris is not used to people doing. He's used to people in his private life just accepting what he says at face value and then moving on. That's how he's gotten so confident in his ability to lie, perceived ability. So now we get to see how he reacts when a professional investigator pries into some of his excuses that make no sense. And Chris accidentally reveals more than he probably intended to. And it starts simple enough, with Graham asking, "Is there anything we're not thinking of? Is there anyone you can think of? Anybody that you might know?" And, Chris already said that we've exhausted all the contacts, everyone we know. But she knows plenty of people that I've never met. And the reason this is significant is because not only is it offensive to the covert narcissist, relating back to how he says, if she never gets back to me, that's fine, but she always gets back to her friends and coworkers. So it's also an excuse of how she could have left. She knows plenty of people I've never met, therefore one of them must have taken her, and I guess I can go home now. So Graham's pushing for more, and here's an even more important one, where he says, "People I haven't heard from in years are contacting me." And the reason that's significant, I'm liking the comments, by the way, so far. It's nice to see people have their head screwed on straight about this case. And someone brought this up, how he's surprised that so many people were contacting him about the disappearance. He wasn't expecting that, because he was expecting the mistress's attitude. In one of her interviews with the detectives, she made a comment of, if I don't hear from one of my friends in a few days, I'm never like, "Oh my God." And she's also very callous about her friend's father dying. She makes it into all about herself. So also his family's, based on the evidence available to the public, they were seemingly uncaring about a 3-year-old girl's deadly nut allergy, to the point where they left nuts around where she could easily touch them and die. So it's not by accident that Chris has surrounded himself with people who think this way, why he was drawn to the mistress and her mindset, which is similar to his family's, as someone can go missing for a few days and it's not a big deal, or a kid could accidentally touch a nut and die, and that's not a big deal. She should have learned. It's not our fault. So he was surprised to see that his wife had such a huge network of caring, compassionate people who actually wanted to see what happened to her and make sure she's okay, find her. He was expecting the mistress's mindset of, "Hey, did anyone find your wife? It's been a few days since anyone heard from her. Well, I guess we should call the cops now." So he was surprised that he didn't even get 1 second alone in his house with... That's another thing too. He tried to get rid of his family. Well, he got rid of his family, but expecting to go home to the empty house where his wife and his 2 children wouldn't be there, and he had to go home to his wife's best friend and her 2 children and a cop. So good job, Chris. More like good job, Nicole Atkinson. That's kind of I see that as how he ended up, it's not the reason for his mindset. I think he was just drawn to other people who have that mindset. And when you get, what's it called, Stockholm Syndrome, when you surround yourself with a group of like-minded individuals who all think the same way, it kind of hardens your reserve to that point of view. And I think, especially when he was spending so much time with the mistress having that mindset in that summer, and less time around Shanann, who had a compassionate mindset, that's where it really hardened his reserve towards what he thought he could get away with. And that's exemplified, maybe the most ominous quote to come out of this for the future of humanity is when Chris says about how when Nicole Atkinson was at the house, after Graham's follow-up question about that, Chris throws in a line of, "Nicole's as freaked out as I am." And he thinks all he has to do is say the words. He's not considering how he has to say them or how he has to act while saying them. He thinks all he has to do is say the right words and everyone will just believe him, while Nicole Atkinson is actually acting freaked out and has the tone of a freaked out individual who cares about the welfare of her friend. Chris is just saying it like a robot. She's as freaked out as I am. And what's crazy about this and ominous about the future of humanity is that if everybody was just a computer with no human emotions or insight, Chris's plan would have worked. Just the words on the page without any emotion in them he would have gotten away with this. Because all of his words alone, if you don't look at how he says them or how he should be acting while saying them, if that's what I think about in the future, everything is becoming digital and technology is becoming more and more autonomous. How long is it before law enforcement is just a sentient computer that takes in just the words of the evidence and makes their judgment based on that? In the future, these Chris Watts types might actually get away with this shit. It's a good thing that we're kind of in a golden age right now where there's so much surveillance, but we still have empathy and other human emotions to know when something, as neighbor Nate said, just doesn't seem right. He's not acting right. Are the autonomous, computerized law enforcement beings of the future going to see that the Chris Watts types just aren't acting right? Or are they just going to take their words at face value and move on? Oh, I guess he's innocent. You're free to go. I mean, that's a scary future. I hope we adapt to that to prevent that from happening. And also going back to the past, before there was so much surveillance, where these types of people probably got away with it more too. Look at how much H.H. Holmes got away with living a double life and the horrible things he did before he was finally caught. So it's a good thing that we're in this age now where there's so much evidence, but we still have human emotion. So what do we got next here? What drove me nuts is, oh, I love this. Chris goes into the contacts and he says, what drove me nuts is when she downloaded the cloud, everything duplicated. And by now we know that Chris is saying, by the way he says them, we can tell that the stuff he's saying, where he adds in an unnecessary detail that you can tell is annoying to him and led to his mindset of, I got to get rid of this family, and this is the only way. How? This is another one of those little details. Any detail by itself isn't really enough, but all of them together paint the picture of why he thought he had to just get rid of them. And this is one of them. The cloud duplicating all of her contacts. So to an idiot who has lost touch with reality, having his wife's popularity and her perceived favoritism towards them shoved in his face every day with every duplicated message and every duplicated contact, that was just horribly offensive to him and a reason to murder, one of the many reasons adding up. But what's great about this is that it's the first of many times where Graham shows what a real man acts like and thinks like. Graham's a human being, a grown adult who accepts responsibility for his actions. He accepts that you have to cooperate with others for the benefit of humanity. And he points out this is the first of many times he goes, oh, I hate that. I hate that. So that's just the first small example where Graham shows that a real man and a human being might hate this. They might hate these little details, but they take it. They put up with it because in the long run, it's the right thing to do. And there's a few more examples of that, but this is the first one. And I just love how Graham many times points out that, oh, I'm sorry, little baby boy Chrissy, you couldn't handle that? Well, I handle it too, and I didn't murder anybody, so. See what else we got here. More unnecessary criticism of his victim. When Graham asks, is there any other electronics around the house, any way we can track her? And Chris has the unnecessary detail of, well, there's a laptop, but she barely uses it. Gee, Chris, I wonder how many comments you made directly to Shanann's face about that, about how you felt about her spending of the money. Because the impression I get from every other interview, everything else you've said about the relationship, anytime something would come up that you didn't like, you would just go, okay, sure, whatever, why not? And now here you are when she can't defend herself, saying there's a laptop, but she barely uses it. What did you say when she got that laptop and barely used it? Yeah, you can get a laptop. Sure, that's fine. No, but it looks nice in the house. It's fine that you never use it. Now that she's gone, there's a laptop, but she barely uses it. So Graham asks if there's anything else they can do. Please, Chris, help us find your family, in other words. And Chris, he's such a complimentary guy. He's such a nice guy. No, from everything I saw, you guys were like spot on. You know, with all the detectives and the patrolmen and the lieutenants. And wow, all the investigating. From everything I saw, you guys were like just spot on. So I guess we can stop looking now, right? That's the first major example I see of him. He makes all these statements where he's just trying to close the door, much like when he got home and they were waiting for him to open up the house so they can go in and look for his family. He rushes in through the door in the garage and closes it behind him. And they're waiting out there for another minute and 15 seconds for him to come around and unlock the front door so they can come in. And that's the same thing he does verbally through a lot of this interview. He'll say something and then in a way where he's just trying to close the door on the subject. So you can tell that he's been thinking of these cover-ups for a long time before actually planning the crime. He did start planning it in the summer that he actually committed the crime, but He says the thing about how she has so many clothes that you wouldn't be able to tell if she took some. Or you wouldn't be able to tell if she took some shoes because she has a whole shoe closet. Much like the laptop she barely uses. She has so many clothes, unnecessary. She spends so much money. And instead of criticizing her in the moment, he probably said, yeah, buy whatever you want. That's fine. I want you to be happy. But in the years ago time when it was happening, he would say it's okay for her to buy all this stuff to avoid a confrontation with her. And he would be thinking what we're hearing now in this interview. Well, I don't know what happened to her because I wouldn't know if she took anything because she has so much stuff. So let's just close the door on that too. And then at some point Graham mentions, or maybe it was Tammy the next day, shows what a good friend and an observant person would say. The shoes she wears every single day are sitting in there in front of the door. She's not wearing the shoes she wears every single day. So we're starting to get the contrast to what Chris Watts is, the human beings, Graham and the friend, showing how a human being reacts. And Chris is starting to get nervous, but this video is starting to get long, so I'll have to see you next time.